Hello, class. I hope everyone's doing good today. Hope everybody's staying well. And if anybody is sick, I hope that you're um, taking care and resting and doing all the things you can to make yourself get better. We've been reading the book America. This is we're to chapter 4 now. Congress, quagmire of freedom. If the president is the head of the American body politic, Congress is its gastrointestinal tract. Its vast and convoluted inner workings may be mysterious and unpleasant, but in the end they excrete a great deal of material whose successful passage is crucial to our nation's survival. This is Congress's duty. To understand the need for a legislative branch in a democracy, we must first acknowledge two central truths. One, society needs laws. While anarchy can often turn a humdrum weekend into something unforgettable, eventually the mob must be kept from stealing the conch and killing piggy. I don't know what that's saying. And while it would be nice if that something was simple human decency, anybody who has witnessed the 50% off wedding dress sale at Flying's basement knows we need a backup plan, preferably in writing. On the other hand, too many laws can result in outright tyranny, particularly if one of those laws is kneel before me or something like that. Somewhere between these two extremes lies the legislative sweet spot that produces the right amount of laws for a well-adjusted society. More than zero, less than fascism. So what the book is really saying is that we need a legislative branch because we need somebody to make laws. And they need to make laws that we need in order to have a good functional society, but we don't want them to be carried away with the idea of making laws to the point that we enjoy fascism, which is more or less absolute rule. It gives the executive branch too much power if the laws are structured improperly. People are busy. A dedicated legislative branch is comprised of representatives to do the people's work, giving citizens the freedom to pursue their own lives while enjoying the benefits of lawful society, even if they are too whipped to see it. That's why they call it a representative democracy in our case, because we don't make the laws directly, because we're not the legislative branch. We elect people, and they make the laws. They're our representatives. Thus, we have a representative democracy and a legislature that reflects that. But once empowered, what keeps the legislative body from becoming morbidly obese? Once again, our Constitution provides the healthy diet of checks and balances that keeps our government from appearing on the local news being removed from its bedroom by a crane. Unlike the president with his fancy pants electors, the Constitution requires congressmen to be directly elected by regular pantsed citizens. Thus, more than any other branch of government, Congress must heed the will of the people. The astute reader may rightly wonder, but didn't you just say the people were busy? Touché. This minor glitch in our representative government is rectified by the white knights of democracy, corporations. These altruistic entities hire lobbyists whose sole job is to ensure, through pervasive argument and financial remuneration that Congress never forgets the people's wishes, especially the people's wishes for deregulation. In other words, Mr. Stewart in this book is saying that lobbyists are really, really a bad, evil thing because they short circuit the will of the people. And if there's any one thing that I would like to see changed in politics, that would be to get the lobbyists out of it, because it takes away your power as a citizen of society to have a proper influence over your elected representative. Because when you got other people that are in Washington, D.C., taking your elected representative onto a yacht for a trip and just giving them money or giving them ways to make money or sending them on vacations, those people have more control over your congressman than you do, and it's only because they are using money, and it's just so wrong. This model of direct elections by the people for representatives of a lawmaking body to be overseen by corporate lobbyists, and that's really not the structure. They're not supposed to be overseen by corporate lobbyists, with obscene amounts of cash, has proven so efficient that 96% of congressmen are reelected. So it's saying that people get reelected because once they get into Congress, they have access to lots of money, and it's always easier to win if you're an incumbent, and it's just a self-perpetuating quagmire. Why else would the same officials be elected over and over and over again? Voter apathy, entrenchment born of a corrupt system designed to ensure those in power stay in power. Tell it to the Castro Paco. Congress and its remora, the lobbyists, allow Americans to enjoy the benefits of lawful and functioning society while only having to think about it once every 2 to 4 years, if at all. Once again, the Founding Fathers are in line for a shout-out. When the founders set down, this is the making of Congress, hot bicameral action. When the founders sat down to create this new civil order, they had two central truths in mind. One, representative democracy would be the most stable and lasting form of government. Two, when the Constitutional Convention wrapped up, they were all going to be out of work. The latter led to the formation of what historians would come to know as the Madison hypothesis. What if, up in the diminutive Virginian, we create a national legislature copious enough in membership and curious enough in structure as to provide the whole of us with a gig for life? Added Governor Morris, PA, verily, should not the designers of this government also be the stewards? We deserve a taste, said Brazzini, a legitimate craftsman from Rhode Island. In sooth, we should be able to dip our beaks, know what I'm saying. Brazzini then moved that New Jersey's John Witherspoon be kissed on the lips, signaling Witherspoon was now dead to him. The motion died in committee, but the larger point was agreed upon. I don't know what they're talking about. With the founders' employment now secured, it was time to address the specifics. What formula would determine the makeup of this legislature? Should the criterion of population, with every person equally represented, or should every state be equally represented? So basically, we had two from each state as senators, and we have representatives from each state based on population. So that way, we satisfied both parties to this one that we have. I guess the Senate's considered the upper house, and the House would be the lower house. One's the Commons, one's the Lords, that kind of thing. The solution, determining representation by a complex equation involving total weight of the populace divided by, let's see. So we had the two-thirds compromise, consisting of two distinct chambers, the Senate or upper house, and the House of Representatives or lower house. One late-night session led the founders to consider the addition of a third chamber or a Waffle House. He's joking. Though by morning, most agreed the idea simply so brilliant at 3 a.m. now seems stupid. The House of Representatives would be the larger chamber and would directly reflect the nation's diversity. A state's number of representatives would be based on population, and its members would face re-election every 2 years. That's what we're talking about. So West Virginia has, I think we have 5 electoral votes. So we have 2 senators, we know that, and we would have 3 representatives. And that's based on population, and that's presently. These roles establish the House as Congress's tough and tumble populist forum, though a case could be made merely created a haven for ideological, by contrast, the more deliberative Senate would be comprised of 2 from each state, regardless of size or population. He wrote 2 men, and he was joking around about that. At that time, it would have been 2 men, but two representatives from each state. Passing senators would be greeted with respectful salutes and pleasantries such as "Hello, Governor," and "Quite a day for a stroll." No, worlds away from the accepted House greetings of "Shoo." Are these congressmen about, or is someone? Never mind. Senators would also only face re-election every 6 years, as was widely acknowledged. They were 3 times better than congressmen. So that's pretty crazy. So senators, how long do they get to serve? 6 years. Representatives serve however long? 2 years before they have to face re-election. And the president, 4 years. And the president can serve how many terms? 2 terms. All right. That was a little bit of regress, but the 2 chambers would be run respectively by the Speaker of the House and the Senate President pro tem. Each chamber would have its own officers, majority and minority leaders, whips, and a sergeant-at-arms. The House would elect 1 member each month as Employee of the Month. That's not true. The Senate would hold an annual canned food drive. The senator who bought the most cans would receive a 10-speed. There would be interchamber dances and spirit rallies. Wednesdays, ladies would The Speaker of the House would also be third in line for the presidency. That's the secession. So the Speaker of the House is third in line. Though as many ambitious speakers have noted, it's not a very fast-moving line. So I don't think a Speaker of the House has ever actually served as president. It goes President, Vice President, Speaker of the House, and then goes on and Maybe I can find that for you someday and we'll go over it again. But the size and makeup of Congress having been decided, it was time to lawmake. Now, the process of creating and enacting legislation is far too complicated to be covered in a book, even this book, which is ostensibly written by experts and dedicated to doing just that. Interested readers should refer to the definitive work on the subject, Schoolhouse Rock, for a more detailed, catchier treatment. So they're saying, the song about I'm a bill, how do I get to be a law? Well, that's what they're saying. But put very briefly, a piece of proposed legislation is known as a bill. Each year, members of Congress sponsor thousands of bills. At the very least, scribble their names onto other people's bills for partial credit. These bills then become laws, or not. Of course, this is not the entire story. After a bill's sponsors have tweaked and massaged it to their liking, the bill heads to the appropriate committee, like the Appropriations Committee. That's a good committee. Bills dealing with national security are sent to the Intelligence Committee. Economic policy bills to the Treasury Committee, while the itty-bitty committee sits and waits for bills that never come. Committees are where members of both parties consider the bill and then mark it up with additions, deletions, and haikus, whatever that is. Haikus. The Senate Appropriations Committee or House Ways and Means Committee also review most bills. These committees are connected with the financial implications of each bill and generally compete in a game to see which chamber has the ability to drive the national debt higher. It's called deficit chicken, and even more fun. So what they're saying is that Congress is really out of control in the way that we appropriate and spend money on stuff that we just we're borrowing against the future all the time, and I don't know how we got to change that. Once a bill has been widely debated and minds have been made up as to its efficacy, its amendment sneak in time. For example, a representative, in other words, are going to stick amendments onto these bills. They're going to make changes to the bills in order to get things out of it. For example, a representative might take an important $2 billion airline security bill on the verge of passage and attach a $70 million rider appropriating funds for his home district to build an interactive corn museum. In the lingo of Washington, such magnanimous expenditure is known as pork. The late Robert C. Byrd was known for getting money for West Virginia, and he was a pork barrel kind of senator. You might think the phrase derives from the piggish greed its practitioners display by subverting fiscal responsibility in the name of self-interest, but in reality it's a harmless reference to the benign plantation practice of distributing rations of salt pork to slaves from wooden barrels. Once one house approves a bill, it is referred to the other, which repeats the committee debating vote process. The two chambers then reconcile their versions of the bill in one last round of compromise and underhanded patronage. The bill is now ready to be sent to the lobbyists. For if a bill is finally going to become law, it's going to have to pass lobbyist muster. See, that's ridiculous, but it's true, unfortunately. At rates of only $300 to $500 an hour, these professionally concerned private citizens can assist our representatives in any last-minute changes in language, content, or intent necessary to ensure their re-election funds. Lobbyists even help expedite legislation by touting its benefits to members whose votes are needed. In many ways, lobbyists are the cheerleaders of Capitol Hill, sad, soulless, clandestine cheerleaders. Now that the statute no longer forbids dumping mercury into kiddie pools, the bill has passed and they're making fun of something, but it's just saying that the lobbyists can detrimental changes can occur to a law due to the input of lobbyists at this part in the process, and it's really terrible. But this is a magical process that lawmaker helps turn. Thou shalt not kill into within the special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the United States any unlawful killing of human being with malice aforethought perpetrated by persons lying in wait or any other kind of willful, deliberate, malicious, and premeditated killing or committed in the perpetration of an attempted perpetrate any arson, escape, murder, kidnapping, treason, espionage, sabotage. So they're just showing how ridiculous laws become because we have a process that's really run amok. Lawmaking is tedious and never ending. It is not for the good salary and godlike sense of ultimate power. It would hardly seem worth, if not for the good salary and the godlike sense of ultimate power, it would hardly seem worth it. But lawmaking is not the only power the Constitution grants Congress. Article 1, Section 8 also imbues in Congress the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to pay debtors. Congress also acts as a check and balance on the government's other branches. Congress has the final approval over the presidential appointments, to say nothing of treaties and ultimate ability to declare war, and to that the congressional responsibilities for weights and measures, rising and maintaining militias and navies, punishing piracy and printing money. And it's no wonder these workhorses are in session almost a full 120 days in a given year. So how many? They don't even. They work less than you do as a student. You have to go 180 days of school every year. Congressmen are in session almost 120 days, so they work 60 days less than you do. I don't know, it's a mess. We're not running for re-election or raising money to run for re-election or spending money in the interest of their re-election. Congress is doing the people's business. Sometimes congressmen even return to their districts and states to rap with the people. This practice is excruciatingly awkward for both sides. So in other words, they're saying that Congress, a lot of times they're out of touch with people. How to filibuster. Oh man, I want to read that. Okay, we're at the end of this chapter, and we have been on for too long. Okay, I've got to stop. We're going to have to do filibustering in another session. Let me turn this off. Thank you.